What is up, plant people? Hey, it's Tuesday again, which means it's time once more for the Planthropology Podcast, the show where we dive into the lives, careers, and general awesomeness of some very cool plant people. I'm Vikram Baligya, your host, and your humble guide in this journey through the plant and natural sciences. And as always, I am just so thrilled to be with you today. Hey, happy winter solstice, everyone. I hope you're having a good one so far. So if you didn't know, today, as you're listening to this, if you're one of those folks that listens to this as it comes out, which I know a lot of you are, I look at the numbers, I see you out there. Today, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, this is the shortest day and longest night of the year and the first day of winter. So I'm actually pretty excited. After today, the days start getting longer. It means it's Christmas and holiday season, and the winter solstice is really a very interesting time of year. There's so much lore, so many rituals, and just a lot of cool stuff that's involved with it. So I actually decided, since it's kind of the holiday and I didn't really have a guest lined up or anything, that I would repost our winter solstice episode from last year, which is actually one of my very favorite episodes ever. And it's what kicked off our Plants and World Traditions series that ran over the past 12 or 13 months, which I know a lot of y'all enjoyed and I very much enjoyed putting out. So you may hear me talk about things from 2020, and I'm so sorry to bring that up and drag up old wounds and scratch those scabs off. But it was a really good episode. I thought it was really interesting. I think y'all loved it a lot too. So couple of things. Go follow Planthropology all the places: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm at the Plant Prof on the TikTok machine, where I took some random plant facts and some fun and whatever was left of my dignity, and I just left it all over there. If you would like to support the show, there are a couple of ways you can do it. You can head over to buymeacoffee.com/planthropologypod, and for the price of a coffee from Coffee Bucks or other coffee shop, you can buy me a cup of coffee. It helps support the show, helps keep everything running, and you're under no obligation to that. I'm going to keep doing this thing regardless. Also, I've been working on merch. So if you go to planthropologypod.com and click on, I believe it's either, I can't remember now if it's a shop or merch, but one of those two up at the top, it'll take you to my Redbubble shop, where I've got a couple of designs. You can buy t-shirts and notebooks and stickers and mugs and all kinds of cool stuff. All of that goes to help support the show, and it'd be very much appreciated. By the way, the Plants Always Win skull design, which has been very popular already, is designed by Sufyan, who is a longtime friend of the show and is just a wonderful human being. She is team bats. I can forgive her that. I like bats, actually, quite a bit. But she's a plant person too. So thanks, Sufyan, for the beautiful design, and for letting me use it for merch. And she knows this, but there's some cool stuff coming her way, which I hope she loves. And if you have fan art, if you have anything you'd like to send along that you'd be willing to feature in my merch store, I will send you some swag, or I'll pay you for the design. Just let's talk. I would love to feature your artwork on the Planthropology merch store. Thanks as always to the Texas Tech Department of Plant and Soil Science. Thank you. I'm not going to talk anymore. This has been a very long intro. So, hey, get ready, listen to some music, and let's talk about the winter solstice. Alrighty. So, what is the winter solstice? Oh, yeah, I always forget that you can't answer me. It's like in class, right, where you ask a question and then you just wait an awkwardly long time in silence for your students to answer you. It's effective and it's horrible for everyone. So what is the winter solstice? Solstice comes from the Latin words sol, which means sun, and sistere, which means to stand still. Now, it's been a minute since I've taken Latin, and I probably pronounced sistere wrong. And I don't care. It's whatever. So solstice means the sun stands still. And the solstices, the summer and the winter solstice, represent that the times when the sun is either at its farthest northern point in the sky, at least in the northern hemisphere, in June, and then at the farthest southern point in the sky in December, which is coming up. And that's also the longest day of the year and the shortest day of the year. So we're coming up on the longest night, shortest day of the year, which is a big part of a lot of these celebrations. And we talked about this some in our Christmas tree episode, where a lot of cultures, the sun god and the sun was revered above all others because it is literally the bringer of life on this planet. Plants grow because of the sun, right? So photosynthesis happens because of the sun. We're able to carry on all metabolic processes essentially on the planet because of energy that is sent from the sun. And so for ancient traditions, you see the sun that drives plant growth, that drives all of these things. And of course, that was going to be revered. And as the days got shorter, several traditions across the world had lore that was happening because the sun god was getting weaker. Either they were ill or something else, or another god or a demon or an enemy was fighting with this sun god, and it made the days shorter. And so the winter solstice was a celebration of the fact that from that point on, throughout the year, through December and into the next year, the days were getting longer. And they were getting closer to harvest and closer to being able to feed themselves again, which turns out, y'all, is a pretty big thing, having the foods. So this celebration marked a lot of different things, from Saturnalia in Rome, where they considered it the birthday of Saturn, the sun god, to different festivals everywhere from Persia to Peru to England. All of these things celebrated the winter solstice because, again, it was sort of an auspicious day for a lot of reasons. And so there were several types of plants that were commonly used in solstice celebrations. And I'm probably not going to be able to cover all of them because I think that there are more than really I even have time in this short episode or in this specific episode to cover. But I'll talk about a few that are maybe more common. And then in the future, we might address this as we go through plant traditions in Europe and different parts of the world, because a lot of these solstice traditions come out of Europe, from Rome through the Norse countries and a lot of the Celtic influences in Northern Europe. So let's start with a couple. So let's talk about holly. Let's talk about the holly tree. So the holly tree often symbolized the waning sun, commencing with the summer solstice, and then the oak tree symbolized the waxing sun, commencing with the winter solstice. And so the Druids in Europe thought that holly's evergreen nature and the bright red berries and all the colors made it a sacred plant. It remained green throughout the winter, and it was one plant in that part of the world that kept the landscape green and beautiful with the bright red berries and the showy green leaves through the winter when everything else was dead. Holly was a traditional solstice decoration throughout Ireland and other parts of Europe. One reason for this is it was relatively easy to find. They could be found in the landscape. It could either be purchased or harvested easily. And so the poor had a way of making wreaths with these bright red berries to hang on their doors, to put above their doors, to deck the halls with boughs of holly. La 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 la. Is that tune right? I don't think so. And so it was a way that even the very poor could decorate their homes and celebrate the season. So decorating one's home with holly eventually became a way of bringing protection to the home and wishing good luck to the inhabitants of that home. So we still do that. We still use holly in our wreaths and in our traditional decorations for this season. Another one that is very common is the Yule log. And you may have heard the word Yule before. It's in several of our Christmas and holiday songs. But Yule was an interesting tradition that became Christmas in a lot of ways. A lot of the Yule traditions sort of morphed into Christmas as Christianity moved throughout Europe. But the Yule log was a literal log, usually made of oak because it was a strong wood that could burn for a long time. That they would, the Saxons and the Celts would burn this log as a means of protection and to symbolize sort of the longevity of people and of their ability to get a household and their ability to get through the winter and get back to a warm, productive time of year. So a lot of times the Yule log would be said to be burned for 12 hours. And if the log would burn for 12 hours, then that was a symbol of good luck, that crops would be good the next year and all that kind of stuff. In some traditions, they would cut down like an entire tree pretty much and use the whole trunk of this oak. Sometimes different species, but oak was very common. And they would try to burn it for 12 days. So they would burn it slowly over time and try to keep it burning for 12 days. And the remains of the log were supposed to be kept in the same, or not in the same place, but so the ashes were scattered through fields, and some of the remains of the log were kept to light the next year's Yule log. And so that started to morph into different traditions, especially as influences from some of these Saturnalia and other solstice traditions came in, from the Romans and the Celts and the Teutons and the Christians even coming in, where evergreen plants were considered a picture of immortality and of life. And so Yule logs that were burned for a long time eventually became the Yule tree, which morphed into the Christmas trees that we're more familiar with today. And that was a Germanic tradition. I say Germanic. It was actually not a Germanic people. It was the German people in the 1800s that gave us our current 17 and 1800s that gave us some of our current Christmas tree traditions, which again, we talked about a couple of weeks ago. So here's another interesting one. And this is not exactly a plant. In fact, it's not a plant at all. But there are some mushrooms that had a part in some of these winter solstice celebrations. So there was a species of mushroom called the fly agaric mushroom, or Amanita muscaria. And it's the Mario mushroom, right? It has a red cap with white speckles on it, and it's kind of what we think of when you think mushroom. I think in current, I guess, pop culture or whatever. So this mushroom often appears at the base of trees, growing on the roots, in the leaf litter and different things of firs and spruces, lots of evergreen trees. This mushroom is also pretty poisonous and hallucinogenic. So the mushrooms were used in a lot of, let's say, rituals where they would consume them in different amounts and hallucinate and try not to die. So this is not a thing I recommend anyone doing, but it may have led to some of our current traditions. One of the side effects of this mushroom being consumed is bright, rosy red cheeks, flushes to the face, and hallucinations, because it's a hallucinogenic mushroom. And it can kill you, so don't eat it. If you find one of these bright red mushrooms, just don't do the thing. Don't do the thing. But it may have given rise to some of the representations of Santa Claus, right? With his rosy red cheeks and his magical powers. Some of this might have come from this fly agaric mushroom. Now, this is not the same as the death cap, which is Amanita phalloides? I'm just making up words. The death cap is another Amanita, so it's in the same genus as this fly agaric, but that one will kill you dead in a hurry. It releases spores and chemicals into your liver, which forces your liver to release toxins, and it is not good. I'm going to say this before. I've said this a lot of times. Don't eat the mushroom. If there's a mushroom and you're not a bazillion% sure what it is, you haven't bought it from a store or from someone who grows mushrooms for consumption, leave the mushroom alone. Don't touch the mushroom. Don't eat the mushroom. Mushrooms are not your friends in general. Okay.
Moving on. So, but this was used in several solstice traditions. A lot of times they were dried near the hearth and then consumed later. Again, don't do the thing. Don't eat the mushroom. Another one that's very common is mistletoe. Mistletoe is a funny one, right? Because mistletoe is a plant parasite. It grows up in the branches of trees. The roots germinate directly down into the vascular system of the plant through the bark, into that cambial layer. It has these sticky kind of white seeds that have a milky substance in it. They're super sticky. Birds can eat them, and then they stick in like rodents' fur as birds fly over different trees or land on a tree and do what birds do when they land in a tree. These seeds and I'm going to use the word mucilaginous, which is a terrible word, but it's accurate. The mucilaginous sticky substance inside these berries on the mistletoe stick to the plant, the new tree that they land on. They stick to the plant. The seeds germinate and the roots grow down. They don't really have roots per se, but the plants germinate down into the vascular system of a tree. So if there's a tree out there in your landscape or around somewhere that is like a deciduous plant, and it's a time of year when it shouldn't have leaves, but the plant still has leaves, it's probably mistletoe growing up in the plant. So we hang mistletoe and I guess kiss under the mistletoe. I've never done that. I'm trying to think of a delicate way to say this. Due to the appearance of the berries and all of that, it is maybe a symbol of fertility throughout a number of cultures, Nordic cultures and different cultures around the world. It was also used by everyone from the ancient Greeks to Druids to Celts and the Norse and several others as being a sacred plant. And it was used for protection, blessings, medicine. Don't eat mistletoe. It is also poisonous. Actually, a lot of these plants that we're talking about are poisonous. I'm not real sure what that's about. Apparently, a lot of these traditions involved mood-altering practices, let's say. And so one way to do that is through the consumption of poisonous plants. I will say it again. Just because they're plants, just because they're natural, they're not your friends. They don't want to be eaten by you specifically. There are other things that these plants want to eat them because those plants are actually probably going to be able to spread the seed somewhere else. You are not that thing, right? Don't eat plants. If you don't know what they are, they can make you dead. Real dead. Like dead in a hurry, y'all. So let's don't do the thing. That actually leads us to our next plant, the yew. And there are several, and that's Y-E-W, not E-W-E, like the sheep thing, or Y-O-U, like you, dear listener. Yew, which symbolize death and the last day of the solar year. The silver fir, which represented winter solstice and rebirth. And birch, which symbolized new beginnings. The Celts believed that bringing plants indoors would give woodland spirits. Now, they had a lot of nature spirits in their religions and in their mythology and their lore. So one of the ideas was that bringing plants like a yew or a pine tree or a fir tree or whatever else into the house gave these spirits a place to overwinter, essentially. They gave them plant material to hide in indoors so they could make it through the winter, and then in spring they could go back out into the forest and bring the forest back to life. Again, these things sort of make sense, right? Where there are reasons, and science has described a lot of these reasons why the earth cools and warms, but at a certain point, it was a thing that happened, right? It got cold in the winter. The sun went down. Obviously, the sun got sick. The plants don't grow during the winter because the spirits that keep them alive don't have anywhere to go. They can't survive. And so as part of these traditions, plants were brought in the house and preserved, and that turned into a lot of our modern traditions. Who has houseplants? You have houseplants. Lots of people have houseplants. It is pretty popular. If you ever get on Instagram or Twitter, to have houseplants. TikTok, shoot, plant TikTok is pretty strong. There's a lot of houseplant TikTok going on out there. So that was another solstice tradition where they would bring plants into the house to protect them and also to protect the winter spirits, or I'm sorry, the forest spirits that needed to survive the winter. There's so many more of these. Ivies stood for fidelity and healing in marriage. They were fashioned into wreaths and crowns and things like that. Wheat, which is linked to agriculture and cultures all over the world, has significance in the solstice, right? It was something that was brought in and preserved and kept through the winter. So it'd be baked into bread, cookies, cakes for solstice feasts. It was woven into wreaths, straw figures, encouraged sustenance, fertility, abundant harvests, things like that. And you can see, and this is a short list, y'all. There's so many more that I don't really have time to cover, and that I'm a little afraid that I may not do good justice to. I'm not sure I've done justice to what I've talked about already. But you can see where some of our modern traditions come from the Christmas tree that we put up in Christian culture to symbolize Christ and Christ's, and if you look at the different like lights and ornaments and all this, they tell different stories. We put a star on top to represent the Star of Bethlehem and all of these things. So there's a lot of traditions that come out of the winter solstice that we can see in our modern society, from holly to mistletoe and all these other things we've talked about. So again, that is a very, very, very brief overview of some plants used during the solstice. There were a lot of cultures that were much closer to nature than we are today. And we see that pop up all over the world. And so again, this was just the first introduction into this series that I'm going to do over the next year about plants in holiday world traditions. So, y'all, I hope that you have a very happy holiday season. I appreciate you listening. It's been such a fun year of planthropology, and the most fun part has been getting to know all of you folks, and I really have enjoyed it, and you guys make my life so much happier and so much better, and I really appreciate you. So thanks for listening. Look us up on social media. We're all the places as Planthropology. I'm on TikTok as The Plant Prof. You can also find my personal account at The Plant Prof on Twitter. Also, there's a podcast now called The Plant Prof, which I've talked about quite a bit. Thanks to the Texas Tech Department of Plant and Soil Science for all the support and all the awesomeness. So I appreciate y'all. I hope you have a safe and wonderful and joyous holiday season, whatever you celebrate, whether it's Christmas or something else. I hope that it is something you can treasure in the midst of all the craziness going on this year. So I wish all of you the best. We've got one more bonus episode this year, which will be, again, my Christmas Eve tradition with my son, and of doing a quick, fun little episode with him. And that's something I hope I can keep going as he grows and as this podcast goes into the future. So I love you lots. I hope you're doing well, and I will talk to you on Christmas Eve. Y'all be cool, and I'll see you later.